Hello. I hope you're well, and I hope that if you are a mummy today, you are being spoilt, and if you're not a mummy today, that you've got a lovely Sunday stretching ahead of you. I realised this morning that I started my career as a YouTuber a year ago today. Now you'll probably work out that the career hasn't blossomed and I'm not now an international YouTube star. However, a year ago on Mother's Day, I made a video which I put onto YouTube, and it was the start of videos that I then went on to make throughout lockdown that were for families, parents, mummies, whoever, humans, about how we might get through some of the days when our children were suddenly at home with us. And I'm just taking a breath there because it's just worth marking that was a year ago, give or take to the day. And as mummies a year ago, there was a lot of anxiety around for us. And a lot of what I talked about in those videos was how we calm that anxiety. Whether it's anxiety in ourselves or in our children, that, let's face it, was caused predominantly from being in a global pandemic. And the reason that the schools were closed physically as buildings to lots of pupils, not to all, was that there was, and there still is, a global pandemic. And today I just wanted to reflect that we're in quite a different position. I'm in Scotland, and so what we have tomorrow is more children going back physically into schools than we've had for a while. And I know that in itself is causing huge emotions. On the one hand, huge excitement, and on the other hand, anxiety. And I know that teachers, particularly of secondary pupils, and I'm one of those, have got that sense of anxiety around those what ifs, those pressures that they feel, those what are the exams actually going to be like? Oh, not exams, they're not exams. How are we going to accredit our children to show everything that they've done and everything that they're capable of? But first and foremost comes the reconnection with the children as they come back into school. And in lots of the videos that I made last year, I talked about when we're anxious, when we're overexcited, we need to know how to regulate ourselves as adults. And I sent something out to the staff in my school, which I just wanted to read because I think it's maybe helpful for those of us who are mummies of teenagers or are teachers of teenagers. And it started off reminding the teachers where I work of all the work we did last year around trauma-informed practice and regulation. We did a lot of work on that, and we asked our teachers to become mindful of what we call regulation, but basically that relationship between us and the pupils we work with. Not the teaching of knowledge, not the conveying of subject information, but that physical relationship that we have that comes first before the learning can happen. And I reminded people that not all children returning from home tomorrow will have experienced trauma. So I'm going to read you what I've written. The pandemic has not been traumatic for all, but we're not quite sure what our pupils might have been through and how they will be when they return, in terms of their ability to regulate themselves emotionally. Learning and recall are likely to be impacted if pupils are not emotionally regulated. We know that calm, regulated adults welcoming all of our pupils back into familiar routines is ideal. We know that we as adults will have to work hard on this, particularly as we are having to cope with big changes to our routines. And we'll probably be feeling all sorts of worries about where, what, and how we'll be teaching. As secondary teachers tomorrow, we know, for example, that some of our classes are going to be split into 2 rooms. And that may be causing us to feel anxious. However, we know that on the whole, our pupils will do exactly as we expect them to, will come back, will cooperate with us, will go to the places we tell them to. But we also need to remember that adolescents are biologically driven and that peer pressure can be hugely important in their lives. That classic teenage brain head, heart head dilemma, and I actually tuned into Krista Burr the other day just to remind me of that classical dilemma song, means that even though teenagers know the right thing to do, they may be influenced and act differently if they're not supervised and they're with their peers. Many of them will be craving connection after many, many weeks of isolation, and many weeks where they haven't got to do those teenage things like chat and flirt and hug and be teenagers with their peers. We know that that is part of their natural development, and that for them, having been stuck in the house with their mums and dads and carers for weeks is not biologically what they would have been doing most of the time. It's also understandable that children coming back won't necessarily know the protocols or follow them because they won't have got into the habits yet of standing 2 meters away from their friends or wearing face masks. And habit formation is really important. Just to go back to peer pressure, I was struck, I remembered something, that when we were first asked to wear masks in Scotland, and Nicola Sturgeon said, this is becoming compulsory in 2 weeks' time, but for now we'd like you to wear them. And I remember sitting on the forecourt of a garage with one of my children, and I had a mask, and I watched, and no one else had a mask as they were going in and out of the garage. And I said, oh, I feel really stupid putting mine on because none of them have got theirs on. Even though I knew it was the right thing to do, I felt that peer pressure and that judgment as an adult of 50 years of age. So if that's the adults, remember the teenagers may feel that pressure. And once everyone's doing it, it's easier to do it. Imagine now the thought of going into a garage without a face mask on. So habit formation. If staff and pupils see other pupils breaking the rules, they might feel angry. Staff, you're likely to feel angry if you know that the mitigation around COVID is that pupils wear masks, and you see a pupil not wearing a mask, or you see a pupil not distancing. That's going to make you feel a lot of stuff. And that's when we're at risk of getting cross or of saying things that perhaps aren't as regulated as we'd like them to be. I am going to adopt a simple mantra of face and space. And if I need to remind somebody that they need to distance or put their mask on, I'm calmly, assertively, and with a mask-hidden smile, just going to say, face and space, please, ladies and gentlemen. Other teachers might want to do something different or similar. Regulation is so important. What can you control? You can control this. And immediately you calm and you regulate. If you're a teacher, you can control that first interaction that you have with each child as they enter your classroom. If you're a parent or carer, you can remind your own child as they go back to remember face and space. We can do this. We need to keep calm. We need to carry on. We need to remember that there's an end in sight, but we're not quite there. And until we are, COVID is still there. It's not a different virus to a year ago, but it's a virus that we understand and that we can get rid of over the next few months if everybody gets vaccinated, if everybody follows the rules. The other things, if you're a teacher or an adult, little tips that I like to do is smell is really important to me. So if I have something, an essential oil or a hanky with a smell that just, maybe my perfume that I've worn at something where I was really happy and calm, a sniff of that when nobody's looking, that can help to regulate you. Feet on the floor, thinking about the way you stand, but breathing above all. Remember to breathe. Wishing you well. Happy Mother's Day if you're a mummy. And have a lovely day. Stay well. Stay safe. Take care.